Okay, what we're going to hear and see is concentrated around 1900 and 1901. What you see here is a French PAthe phonograph or talking machine made in either 1900 or 1901. And you'll notice it has a very big cylinder on it. It is known as a concert cylinder. This was a high fidelity recording process, and it actually is pretty good, that was developed in the late 19th century, developed about 1897 and 97, 98 to get a much higher speed playback and get much better fidelity on the cylinder phonograph than was capable with the small regular size cylinders. And this machine that you see has a lot of technical advances that took place in the late 19th century. One of them you'll see on that is the horn. That horn is made of aluminum. And you say, well, so what? No, this horn was made in the 19th century for a machine that was sold either in 1900 or 1901. And that horn is 19th century aluminum. You don't see that very often. Aluminum was known as an element as far back as the 1840s, but the process to actually separate it out from the oxide, which is the mineral bauxite, is the usual source of aluminum production. The process was very, very involved and very labor intensive, but aluminum was actually made into coins. I think it's in Russia, with a image of the Tsar, and they were worth more than gold. You could pay your expenses with either gold or aluminum, but the aluminum was actually more valuable than gold, with a picture of the Tsar on the coin. But aluminum was a very exotic metal, a very exotic element in its elemental form, until the advent of electricity as a consumer product. But anyway, this horn is made of aluminum, and what happened when they produced a generator capable of producing a sizable amount of electrical energy to power small cities. And this is what Edison did. He called it the dynamo. And this was capable of producing a great deal of energy in the form of direct current technology. And it was found that not only could this be used to generate electricity and power the electrical lights and the mostly electrical lights with the 1880s, the electrification of the United States eventually, but it was found that it could be used to produce electrolysis on certain elements in a molten mass of material in which there was a cathode and an anode, that is a positive and negative charge. And the element would accumulate on, the metals would accumulate on the what is known as the cathode, and the nonmetals would accumulate on what is known as the anode. And they found that they could use this to produce elements which heretofore, previously, had been very, very difficult, or in some cases impossible, to produce through chemical means. One of these, for instance, was sodium and lithium, and a few elements that had not been produced in the elemental state. But they found out that if they took aluminum oxide, which a common source of it was the mineral bauxite, which is aluminum oxide essentially, and mix it with a compound of fluorine, and then put it in a essentially electric furnace, or the same arrangement essentially connected up with the DC current, you could electrolytically separate out the aluminum from other elements and get elemental aluminum in quantity relatively cheaply. Now, aluminum had been produced in a fairly large quantity in the 1870s. To produce the quantity of aluminum to cover the Washington Monument. In 1876, there was a 100th anniversary of the United States, founded as was in 1776. And this was known as the Centennial Exhibition. And one of the tour de forces, one of the grand parts of this, was the production of the Washington Monument. And to cap it all off with something very exotic, it was coated or capped at its top with sheets of elemental aluminum. But this aluminum was produced by a chemical means, not by electrolysis. It was produced by this very difficult and time-consuming and very involved process that had been done originally in the 1840s. And this tour de force of coating the top of the Washington Monument, so it was one of the accomplishments that was lauded as being a very unusual event and very exotic. And today people would say, yeah, well, that's just covered with aluminum, so what? But in 1876, that was a really big deal. And anyway, when electrolysis became available for producing elements like aluminum and other elements such as sodium and potassium and a number of what are called light metals, essentially, that are difficult or very difficult, in some cases impossible, to produce by any other means, aluminum started to become a consumer product. And in the phonograph, particularly with the Columbia graphophone used aluminum in it, as did the machine that you see right here, which was made in France. It's a PAthe talking machine, or PAthe COncert Cylinder talking machine. And they wanted to have all the latest technology, the latest things in the world of science and industry, and aluminum was one of them. So this horn that you're going to see, and you're going to hear it play, the horn is made from elemental aluminum produced by electrolysis in the late 19th century. It's probably some of the oldest aluminum you're going to see, except for that on the top of the Washington Monument, which actually is older than this horn. But these aluminum horns were very desirous with talking machines because they were light and yet they were strong and they gave a good sound. So anyway, we're going to listen to another contemporaneous thing to this machine, and that is the key song from the Broadway musical Floradora. It was the musical that was written to bring in the 20th century, 1901, and it was a very hit musical with some very good music, and we're going to hear on a concert cylinder played through an aluminum horn, Tell Me Pretty Maiden from Floradora.